it is really important once you've tasted success with a particular product or service, you need to keep investing in it and ensure and you sort of guard it with your life to ensure that we continue to be a leader in that product or service in a particular industry. So yes, you need to focus completely on it. Having said that, if you do not invest and introduce new products, sooner or later you're going to be sort of outdated in the market.
Hey, this is Aaron Price, and I'm so excited for today's show. We're talking about scaling a company while maintaining company culture. We've got a special guest, Akhil Khanna, the Vice President of Technology Strategy at Cross River Bank, itself a startup that's grown tremendously. So I know you think a lot about company culture there as you grow. Akhil, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me over, Aaron.
So for people who aren't as familiar as I am and Tech United is with Cross River, can you share with people just briefly what is Cross River all about?
Right. Essentially, Cross River is a bank, but at its heart, it's a technology company that develops its own proprietary core banking system. And what it essentially does is allows other fintechs in the industry to plug into our proprietary core banking system and also take advantage of our operations and compliance processes by us virtue of being a bank, and take the entire package, what is today commonly known as banking as a service. So we provide banking as a service capabilities to allow these fintech players to offer lending and payments capabilities in a financially inclusive manner to a larger community that might otherwise not have, opportunity to avail of banking services.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And I know that Cross River enables, I don't know the number, I'm not sure you're not to share, but dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of providers in order to process transactions in ways that also meet high levels of security. So we're psyched about the relationship with Cross River, based in New Jersey, worth pointing out.
Right.
But let's talk about scaling while maintaining company culture. Is there a moment, do you believe, as a company grows, whether it's the size of the company, the revenue of the company, the fundraising, the product, where they need to transition processes from sort of early stage scrappy startup to more mature, process driven, growing enterprise?
No, certainly there's key milestones when one has to look back and take a call as an organization whether you want to get more process oriented. But I think size is relative. You could double in size year on year for the next 10 years, still be a mid-sized player in an industry which has many thousands of employees in an organization. I think at any stage of an organization, one needs to remember that they need to have a bit of a startup culture, which is synonymous with innovation, with nimbleness on processes, on decision making, as well as trying out new things, failing fast. I think that piece of a startup culture needs to be there in any successful organization. And you would see large organizations like Google, like Amazon. Amazon till date is one of the largest companies in the world, but till date is a day one company where they put the customer first. They try out an experiment on a number of innovative products and service delivery methods to ensure that the customer's life is easier. I think that is important. What is also important is for any for an organization of any size is to start getting more process oriented bit by bit in increments, because it's only with structure that you can manage innovation in a successful way on a sustainable basis. So those things, process oriented mode of structure and environment, as well as the heart of a startup with innovation and a little bit of risk appetite to try out new things is important for any organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how does a lot of people talk about creating a culture of embracing failure, failing quickly. How do you see that materialize though on like the day-to-day basis? How do you create, there are people basically many people on your team, right, want to just make sure that they keep their job, right? How do you make sure that they feel like it's safe to fail? The thing you agreed about happening, 2 months ago that they've been working on, turns out it didn't work out so well, but that's celebrated even. How do you make that? How do you create that flexibility in the workplace?
Great question. You've mentioned a couple of interesting things. People get married to the jobs that they do on a day-to-day basis. What is important is the leadership needs to ensure that the vision of the company, a large-scale vision of the company, or long-term vision of the company, is also sort of spelled out to each and every employee in the organization on a regular basis. And vision needs to be branded. It needs to be in your face every time you step into office. It needs to be you need to hear it from your leadership on every communication or engagement platform. And only then you sort of rise above your daily or your quarterly goals and sort of tie yourself and align yourself to the vision of the company. Also important because every other department in a complex organization will have its own goals or set of activities that need to be done. But then again, it's the job of the leadership to ensure that they are in alignment with what the greater organization goals and vision is. So I think it needs to be spelled out on a regular basis. The other piece is the values. Values is something that really define the culture of an organization. If it is a top-down organization, or is it a bottom-up, or is it a mix of both? Most successful organizations would be a mix of both. It starts off with you walking and talking about the values and living the values, and it's not just something that looks good on the wallpaper of your office. It is something that you must believe in. It is something that that needs to be practiced, and most of the people in the organization would look at the leadership to sort of emulate that kind of vision for the vision and value of the organization.
Can you share what any one of the values are at Cross River and how they materialize day to day?
Yes, I think at Cross River, we believe that ideas are not a domain of any one leadership, right? Ideas could come from any part of the organization. So our CEO basically emphasizes on every quarterly meeting that he has with the entire employee base of Cross River, that they are open to write to him on any product that Cross River should enter into or should introduce, or any markets that they should enter into. Obviously, when he says, send us your ideas on what we should do next or how we should grow the company further, he also wants you to think a bit more and talk about how you want to do it. That is obviously evaluated. So all of those ideas are personally evaluated by him and his core strategy team on the feasibility of it. But what he's essentially sending out a message is, please speak up. You don't need to follow a particular hierarchy. You can write directly to the CEO. This kind of open communication really builds a lot of comfort for the employees to not be. It builds a sort of a safe environment for the employees to speak up and contribute ideas. And there have been many products that have come out of this exercise. So for example, we are getting big time into crypto industry and crypto warehousing. And this is an outcome of one such idea that came out from somebody, in the filing ranks of Cross River. So I think that is something that the CEO epitomizes quite well in the organization, which is open communication or open contribution to ideas.
Are there certain tactics that you think have worked to help sustain some of the startup culture as Cross River or other tech, fast growing tech companies you've been a part of as they grow?
I think Cross River, is a startup. We still call it a startup, but it's a 13-year-old startup. And the reason we've managed to keep ourselves such an nimble-footed is because we we uh, we sort of emphasize on a couple of things, which is to ensure that the old um, um, and the old expertise that we have in the organization continues to sort of handhold new ideas and new talent that we get into the organization. So there is a feeling that, like I said earlier, that we get married to the ideas that or the products that we introduce into the organization. But it is also important that we look out for other products, processes that can help us do business better, deliver business better to our partners. And I think that is something that our CEO and the leadership keep a keen eye on. The old and new sort of work hand in hand. Um, um,
Can
something
we jump
that
down that old and new piece of it? Because you've talked about a few things where startups and small businesses as they grow in general have usually one really strong feature or focus area, and as they grow they get into other markets, as you talked about, getting into crypto and the various other markets. How do you make sure that you keep your core strength intact and still have opportunity to play around in other markets and create a culture that allows those things to happen without sort of diluting the entire essence of the business?
it is really important. Once you've tasted success with a particular product or service, you need to keep investing in it and ensure and you sort of guard it with your life to ensure that we continue to be a leader in that product or service in a particular industry. So yes, you need to focus completely on it. Having said that, if you do not invest and introduce new products, sooner or later you're going to be sort of outdated in the market. And so what we need to do is have a clear balance between our existing successful products and how we can sort of improvise and improve on them, as well as keep an eye out for new products and services that are being taken up in the market, and what role as a bank and a financial services that we can take. I think one thing is to be said in terms of a more strategic outlook of a company, which is also important, that we cannot be good in everything. So strategy is not just about what you invest in. It's also, you need to take a call on what you shouldn't get into. You cannot be good at everything, because if you try to be good at everything, you would probably not be good at anything at all. So
glad you brought that up. There's some people talking about, even with like college degrees, to lean into your strengths and ignore the other subjects, just become sort of domain experts, and other people who have more of the, let's work on the weaknesses and have a well-rounded outcome. What's your view here?
I'm a person who usually takes a middle path, and this is just me, Akhil Khanna, and personal opinion. I completely go with the Pareto principle of 80-20, where 80% of the time you need to work on your bread and butter, and 20% of the time you can work on your champagne business, which is trying out new products and services, and see if that in the future becomes your bread and butter. So you do need to set aside that 20% investment in and resources into trying out new things. Only then you could be called an innovative company. And that pretty much has been the hallmark of Crossriver, which is trying out different things. Like I said, banking as a service, or BaaS, is quite a buzzword nowadays, but this is something that Crossriver actually started way back in 2008, 2010, when there were not many banks that were actually offering their platform to other fintech companies, but we did that. And to give you an example, last year in the PPP program, a 2-bank branch called Crossriver, based out of New Jersey, was able to dole out it was the 4th largest private bank in terms of doling out PPP loans, and that was primarily through its technology platform and its partnership in the market.
Really incredible. So lastly, like, as a small organization has a vision of being a much larger organization, how do you authentically and appropriately convey that message to your employees, to your stakeholders, to your clients, so that they, are excited about the future, but they don't think that you're just kind of BSing into what might be but never is?
Right. Thank you. I think it's very clear, at least in my mind, and also the leadership at Cross River, that complexity sort of dictates that the understanding and associated action are a shared endeavor. And therefore, the critical group elements that undermine the organization learning capability are sort of being accountable to one another and having a joint goal. So the leadership cannot work in different directions. They need to sort of align themselves to a common goal, a common vision, and that vision needs to be set up upfront by the leadership of the company. And only then you can talk about it, you can repeat it, and make the rank and file of the company understand, so that everybody's working in tandem. I think that is a clear measure of success for a startup company or a large company, or in just about any industry.
What would you say? I'm a big fan of thinking about sort of your own personal unique strength. I wonder, what do you see as, some people call it like your superpower? What do you think is your superpower?
I think my superpower is being, and okay, I don't want to sound boastful, but I think my superpower is being, is something that I consciously try to work on, is being logical. One needs to be really logical about the way things work. You can't be too anal about having just your way when you're working in a company. And this is something, startup founders need to sort of realize, that as you grow in an organization, you're going to get people from various different backgrounds, and that diversity itself will create a lot of value if you let it thrive. If you hear to different ideas of from people coming from different backgrounds. I mean, that is what all diversity is all about. You got to listen to them, you got to implement some of them, some of those ideas. So I think try being logical, try not being too anal about just a particular way of implementing a product or a service or a platform. I think there is merit in hearing out what different parts of your company are talking about as to what the direction should be. Of course, as a leader, as a CEO, you need to take the final call, but I think there's definitely merit in, if you get in talent from other organizations, or you acquire a new company, you get in the talent from that company. I think since you've already invested in that talent, you might as well take their inputs into designing your vision for the future.
Absolutely. So, this is the Tech United community is a group of people that want to not just learn, but help each other out. What do you and/or Cross River need right now? Talent, introductions, high fives. What do you need?
Say that again.
I said talent, introductions, maybe just high fives. What do you need?
I think we would definitely need a lot of people to understand how technology can help solve problems that a normal brick and mortar bank cannot. So that is something that is our endeavor today, is to work with technology and help solve banking and financial services issues that are there in the community today. So we would definitely like to tell our story to people. We're always looking for talent. We are a growing company. So
any particular areas of focus on the talent side?
We're actually pretty much growing in every direction. So product management, obviously the tech development side, we're a big tech company, like I said. So tech development side, we're growing a lot. Product management, we're getting a lot of interest. Also, there is a big requirement in fintech, in payments, in marketplace lending. So we welcome people from all sorts of backgrounds who have an interest and a will and a skill to take the company forward. And then there are other support functions as well that are growing, and we have a very thriving job board. So we welcome your viewers to come down and explore opportunities with Crossover.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate you joining us. I know this is your first time on the show, but we like to end normally, 2 years ago or so in a real life event, minus a few we've done in between. We did a lot of high-fiving in person. So we like to end the shows on a high five. So on the count of 3, high five your camera with me. 1, 2, 3, boom, there you go. Thank you for being with us. I really appreciate it. Oh, and I'm out of focus. Isn't that a great way to end the show? And we look forward to working with you in Crossover quite a bit more. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for having me, and on behalf of Crossover as well. Thank you.
Thank you.